video, you'll learn how to write a summary of a nonfiction text. So when I sit down to look at your summaries, I'm going to be looking for 4 different things. First, a topic sentence that introduces the title, author, and purpose of the text. A clearly stated central idea. 3 to 4 key ideas or details. And a concluding sentence. I'm also going to be looking that your summary does not include personal opinions or judgments. So when I sit down to write my summary, I want to make sure that I have these notes in front of me. First, I'm going to have my summaries of the key ideas in each section or chunk. Those probably will be next to my text, right, in the right column. However, I have listed them here. I'm also going to have my patterns. So I've gone back through my summaries of each section or chunk, and I've noticed patterns of ideas, so those ideas that are repeated over and over throughout the text. Then I've used several of those patterns, maybe not all, but several of those patterns to develop my central idea. So in this model, I'm going to be using the article that we worked with about the glaciers melting in the Arctic. So the central idea that we came up with was here: the author believes that the burning of fossil fuels is heating up the earth at such a rapid rate that glaciers will melt within 1,000 years. So remember that I'm also going to cross off the author believes that. So I just have my central idea here. Okay, so when I get started, my first 2 sentences of my summary are going to be my topic sentence, which includes the text type, the title of the text, the author, and the purpose, and then my central idea statement. Okay, so let's try this. So my first sentence in the what type of text is this? A type of text could be an essay, an article, a story. I'm going to choose an article. I'm going to include my title of the text. So my title is The Glaciers Are Melting More Quickly. And remember that when we are including an article, we are going to put the title of the text in quotation marks. My author is Scott Gould. And then I'm going to include the purpose. And first I'm going to start with an academic verb. So an academic verb, remember, is going to be a verb that shows what the author is doing. So I'm going to say that the author discusses. If you look at the back of your summary template, you have a list of academic verbs. You can choose any of those. And then I'm going to include my purpose, right? Here's the topic of the text. So my first sentence reads like this. In the article, Glaciers Are Melting More Quickly, Scott Gould discusses why Arctic glaciers are melting more quickly than scientists previously thought. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to my central idea. So I already have my central idea written. First, I want to start with another academic verb. So this should be a different academic verb than the first one that I discussed. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to use argued. So he argues that, and now I'm just going to put in my central idea, that the burning of fossil fuels is heating up the earth at such a rapid rate that the glaciers will melt within 1,000 years. I don't need my double VATs. Okay, so I have my first 2 sentences. So I want to move on to my next couple sentences, and those are going to be key understandings that show the development of the central idea. They're going to be 3 to 4 of the most important ideas that the author develops within the text. So I actually, when I came up with these, I actually used mostly the language from my chunks, from my summaries of key ideas for each section or chunk. So I just took some of these and I made those my 3 to 4 key ideas or details. So number 1, the burning of fossil fuels causes the earth to warm, which speeds up the melting of glaciers around the world. 2, the Thwaites Glacier, a glacier in Antarctica, is a good example of the impact of melted glaciers could have. 3, the melting of Thwaites Glacier would cause global sea levels to rise by 2 feet. And 4, when glaciers melt, sea levels rise, having negative impacts around the globe. Easy, right? It should come almost directly from my chunk summaries. Okay, so finally, my final sentence is going to be where I include the final conclusion of the article. Like if I was going to take the central idea of the text and I'm going to look at that final section or chunk, how does the author sum it up, right? What is the conclusion that the author comes to based on their central idea? I could also use this sentence to restate my central idea in a new way. I'm going to show you how the final conclusion works, though, because I think that this is probably the easiest way to sum up your summary. To conclude your summary. So I'm going to come back to my chunks, and I want to look at my final chunk. So my final chunk is chunk 5. The melting of the West Antarctic ice sheet will happen eventually. Cutting down on fossil fuel emissions could slow it down by 200 feet. So that's actually what the author discusses in that final section or chunk. That has a lot to do with, though, my central idea that the burning of fossil fuels is heating up the earth, melting the glaciers. So I'm going to end with that final conclusion. So I'm going to start with a transition. This just lets the reader know, some sort of transition that lets the reader know that this is your final sentence. Although the melting of the Arctic ice sheet will happen eventually, let's get rid of it. Although the melting of the Arctic ice sheet will happen eventually, Gould, which is the last name of my author, you'll do this a lot in your writing about nonfiction. You'll use the last name of your author. And then I'm going to have another academic verb, and I'm going to use a different one. I'm going to use one, maintains, and I just stole that from my academic verb list on the back of my summary template. Maintains that cutting down fossil fuels emissions could slow it down significantly. Okay, so let's look at my final complete summary. And I want us to check off that we have all 4 of my parts and that my summary does not include personal opinions or judgments. So in the article, Glaciers Are Melting More Quickly, Scott Gould discusses why Arctic glaciers are melting more quickly than scientists have previously thought. Okay, so there's my topic sentence. I'm including my title, I include my author, okay, and I'm including the purpose of the text. Okay, so let's look for my central idea. He argues that the burning of fossil fuels is heating up the earth at such a rapid rate that glaciers will melt within 1,000 years. Okay, so that's my central idea. 3 to 4 key ideas or details. The burning of fossil fuels causes the earth to warm, which speeds up the melting of glaciers around the world. Number 1. Number 2, the Thwaites Glacier, a glacier in Antarctica, is a good example of the impact of melting glaciers could have. Number 3, the melting of the Thwaites Glacier would cause global sea levels to rise by 2 feet. And number 4, when glaciers melt, sea levels rise, having a negative impacts around the globe. Okay, so there's my 3 to 4 key ideas and details. Now my concluding statement. Although the melting, we have that extra it again. Although the melting of the Arctic ice sheet will happen eventually, Gould maintains that cutting down fossil fuel emissions could slow it down significantly. Okay, there's my concluding sentence. So here's my question. Does my summary include personal opinions or judgments? The answer is no. It doesn't, right? I'm not talking about whether I agree with Gould at all, right? I'm not talking about whether I am personally going to turn around and stop driving cars, right? This is just summarizing what is the central idea, what's Gould's purpose, and what are the most important ideas or details that are introduced in the text. After reading your summary, I should have a pretty good idea that you've read and you've really understood the text. Okay, go back now. Your job is to summarize the article that you read about the Paris climate talks. Have fun.